Hello, 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 and welcome back to another exciting episode of Nothing Zilch Nada. We're your host, Xavier Dean.
And Jacob Green.
Now, you may notice a couple things. First off, Jake has a really nice little device by him. So, Jake, what are you currently using?
I'm using like an Intel Array microphone. I've actually had this for 2 years because I originally bought it to record saxophone stuff with, and I've not figured out how to get it to sound good without it sounding distorted. Uh, so, but I realized that when I was testing it out with my voice, that it worked pretty well for that. So we're gonna be trying that and see how this works out. Um, yeah.
All right, and while he is upgrading, I am doing a little downgrade. As you may notice, you just see the green screen, you do not see our logo. That's because I didn't think things through and decided to wear a green shirt today. So, so we're just I'm not gonna
Let's see
bother.
the
What's that?
let's see the floating head.
You want- Well, the problem is it's not really a floating head. So give me 1 second to go here, here. Like it flashes. That's the problem.
Uh
Yep.
Makes
So
sense.
yep. So because of that, no logo on the background, but that's okay.
Hmm.
And so on to our episode. And this week is Jake's topic. Jake, what are we discussing today?
Well, we are discussing today. We're discussing final jobs from the Final Fantasy franchise specifically. Uh, I guess it's fair to call it like RPG jobs because Final Fantasy was the first Final Fantasy, especially was initially inspired by the likes of Dungeons and Dragons. Um, Really, the differences just come down to like the names and maybe some passive abilities. But if you were to compare role-playing games from back in the day or today and compare them to the jobs of like not just Final Fantasy, but other RPGs that use a job-based system like Bravely Default or Octopath Traveler or some of the Dragon Quest games. I'm sure there's other ones I'm not thinking about. But the reason I put the Final Fantasy jobs here is because that's kind of the terminology that I know the best. I also like the designs of the costumes the best. As you can see, I have some of the artwork displayed here. Actually, most of the artwork I'll be using is concept art from Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy V, because that's kind of one of the most popular games in terms of having like a widespread job system. Um, but I also have a tier list pulled up on a second screen, which we will be referring to here and again when we get to it. But really what we're talking about is we're going to be discussing the baseline, just like, what do these jobs do, no matter the games? Because like, for Final Fantasy V, all the characters can equip knives or swords or whatever, that's a given. Um, and we're not going to be discussing like hyper specific stuff from every game, mainly because I did not have the time. But I just try to include, what the main abilities of each of these characters are, especially since not all of these jobs appear in every game. Most of these jobs do, um, and they do appear in stuff like Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy Tactics, but there are some other ones that also don't appear in those games or they barely appear at all. There are a couple of exceptions that I made, but we'll get to those. But mainly, we're going to be ranking them in terms of not only what abilities they possess, but whether these abilities are applicable to the real world. And this is where Xavier comes into play because now I've not played every single Final Fantasy game. I've not even completed any of these games. But I am very familiar when it comes to like role-playing games and like their general abilities and like seeing how things work. But
Hmm.
having Xavier around allows us so that way, you know, both of us can be like, hey, how do these really apply to the real world?
Yep. And as someone who has never played Final Fantasy, most of the knowledge I'm going to be drawing upon for this will either come from this PowerPoint, what little research I was able to get through earlier today,
Mhm.
or any prior knowledge from when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. Uh, Also, if you want to do your own in-depth research, I gave Xavier a link to the website that I referred for most of my research, and we could put that in the description below, just so that way you could do your deep dive and see like it's actually very well cataloged, uh, how each of the jobs function through each game. Uh,
Hmm.
Through like the main number titles, the MMOs. The MMOs are also ones that have a very deep integrated job systems that are kind of similar to Five and Tactics.
Hmm.
Um, but with that out of the way, we got about 25 different jobs. So it'd be kind of like our Mario Power Up tier list, but unlike those, these most of these can really be applied to the real world, I think.
All right.
Um, so and for the record, just a quick clarification. When we talk about real world applications, we're not always going to be talking about, okay, can this job work at a Burger King or something? It's like,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That is a sensitive topic. You know, our hometown lost its Burger King this week.
I just realized that, and honestly, I mean, I don't usually go to Burger King much. In fact, I rarely go to fast food joints anymore, if I'm being completely honest. That's
Hmm.
what cooking does to you. I made my own pizza today. That's so inexpensive compared to just like, you know, ordering pizza. Ordering pizza can be expensive.
Yes, yes, can. Pretty
Yeah,
sure
but it's
last.
also making your own pizza is better for you,
Hmm.
generally speaking. Anyways, but with that out of the way, I figure so the first six couple jobs are actually the very first jobs that appear in the very first Final Fantasy game. So I thought it'd be appropriate to start with those.
All
Well,
right.
with one exception being our first one, actually, the Knight.
All right. I know all about knights, except for these ones.
Yeah. So, the Knight was actually not a feature job in Final Fantasy One. It was actually the fighter. But the fighter, see, Final Fantasy One's jobs are like, oh, you can evolve the fighter into a knight, or you can evolve the thief into a ninja. Um, Now, some of those abilities are eventually split off into like their own things, like the thief and the ninja. For the fighter and the knight, like fighter is just a weaker knight, so I didn't want to include it. Also, just to point this out, I put subtitles for all of these jobs,
Hmm. I like it.
and hopefully Xavier finds a little bit of humor compared to each of these.
I, I did
So,
I did find this one pretty funny.
yeah, well, it gets even better, hopefully.
All right.
Uh, so the knight, uh, typically speaking, they have very high strength.
Hmm.
Uh, And most of these jobs, fire-based jobs, usually have low magic capabilities. There are some exceptions, of course, but the knights, they're not usually that proficient when it comes to magic. In fact, I'm not even sure if I should have included it in the first place. So we could just eliminate that out of the equation. Um, but they lower enemies' stats through stuff called breaks, which are uh, they target like specific stats. for the enemies. So it could be for HP, which is health points, could be for magic points, could be for speed, etc. They also have the ability to cover for weakened party members.
Mhm.
Uh, and they can equip swords and shields, and in some games they can equip two swords for double the damage.
Ah, okay.
So I think Knight is a pretty solid job, but
Mhm.
what do you think, Xavier? How do you think Knights would handle in this day and age? Now, Knights aren't really a thing in today's day and age, but I could easily see them in something as a military type
Mhm.
position.
Yep, that was exactly what I was thinking. I would say overall real world situations, the knight's probably not going to be as useful. Maybe you could use them as a bodyguard or a form of security, but overall, I I don't really see them in an overly practical sense outside of protection or military.
Mm. Sorry, I am trying to escape the screen so that way I can. Oh wait, it's been a while since I've done slideshow stuff, so please forgive me as I try to figure this out. Okay, there we go. So, where do you think this should go? The night.
All right. Well,
I
once
am
I see,
trying. Yes. Can I move? Can I move the icon? Oh, I can. Okay, cool. Please, please. Hang on a minute. I need to stop share.
all right. Hey, take your time.
I don't want to take up more of your time. Okay. Um,
All right.
so where do you think Knight should go?
If we're talking about real world instances, I kind of want to say C tier because again, there's the real maybe B tier because it's a
I
protection.
I I want to give it B because
Okay.
there's combat potential with a knight. And you know, there are still some military factions that have to learn to use a sword.
Right.
Um, but there are other job classes that also have to deal with swords as well. And I do think there are other versions of knights that I think handle themselves a little bit better. But we'll get to those in a
Hmm.
minute. Alrighty. So the next job that we have is a very iconic job for Final Fantasy, the Black Mage.
I attack
So
if I can survive.
yes, there's a reason I put that there. So of course, with black mages, they learn to cast black magic, which is attacking magic. Um, they also I love the black mage design. This is one of the most iconic like Final Fantasy designs. Um,
Hmm.
but they learn magic, attacking magic, so like fire, lightning, ice. They have very high attack magic, but their defense is kind of weak.
Hmm.
And for all these mage type jobs, they typically can equip staffs and rods,
All
which you
right.
know they can use it to like poke enemies, I guess, like hit them senseless.
Well, I feel like it could also be used to channel the magic.
Hmm. Well, yeah, that's true, but that's I guess if it's like a real world thing, sure. Um,
Hmm. All right.
what do you think?
So for me, the first thing I think of when I think of magic is range, because they're attacking using lightning, using fire, using uh ice.
Hmm.
odds are it's not, oh, hey, I'm gonna set my hand on fire and slap you. It's more, I'm gonna throw a fireball at you. You know, it's gonna go full Palpatine, unlimited power, stuff like that. So, just like the soldier, I could see the mage going into a little more of a militaristic job, taking on more of a ranged attack. But
Hmm.
because they're using stuff like fire, ice, and lightning, I can
Hmm.
see some practical uses for certain jobs. Like, for example, the whole shooting electricity. Yes, you can use it as an attack. You could also use it as a way to insert electricity into a device.
Mm.
Whether it's charging someone's phone, like what was seen in the movie Shazam, or making sure that power lines have the electricity they need, charging up, generators, all sorts of things like that. With fire, honestly, you could just be lazy and shoot it at a bonfire or a grill just to have it all started.
Hmm.
Ice, I mean, we're in the summer right now. You can never not need ice.
Yeah, that is perfectly true. Um,
So I can see the mage in a more practical sense than the soldier. I'd say
hmm.
the only, or not soldier, the knight, the only downside would be the health,
Hmm.
because with it having such low like health stats, I would assume it would be almost like fighting a child.
Yeah. Well, they're usually described as like being squishy. And that's actually apropos given that one of the most iconic black mage characters in Final Fantasy is Vivi. And he literally is a child.
Uh,
Um,
I don't know.
uh,
I would still say the black mage could be put in A because I could see a lot more practical uses.
Okay. And we could alter this a little bit as we go along because there are a lot of mages in Final Fantasy. There's a lot of mages in RPGs, period. Uh,
Yes.
and speaking of other mages, the white mage, the black mage's opposite counterpart.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
All right.
um, Again, bit of a pun with this one. So, white mages, unlike black mages, don't have attacking magic. Uh, they use healing magic. So, healing HP, healing MP, can cure certain ailments if necessary.
Mhm.
That kind of depends based on the game, but I know in certain games they have the capability to cure ailments. They can also wield staves, but much like the black mages, hence why they are comparable to each other, they also possess low strength and defense.
Right.
Which makes sense. They're white mages. And, even though they're not as iconic as the black mage, I love the white mage guard. Actually, the reason for the red arrows are to signify the magic shooting out of their hands or bodies.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. So the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm looking at this, it's fully because of healing and healthcare, but
Mm-hmm.
seeing them in doctor roles, surgeons,
Yep.
stuff like that. Even going down to like a school nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that because I know that every job has their pros and cons when it comes to safety.
Mm-hmm.
I can see at least one of them in each job as a backup first aid kit.
Mm-hmm. You say a backup first aid kit.
Well, maybe as a first. Well, I don't want to use them as an object, Jake.
Yeah, yeah. I understand that. I'm just curious. Um,
Just like you know how a first aid kit would have like bandages or uh
yeah,
yeah, bandages and wraps for stuff like that.
yeah,
Instead, you have a white mage.
yeah. I mean,
But
I can see why it may just be more, you know, uh, heavy stuff. Like you're about to die type
mhm,
of ailments.
yes. Well, of course.
Yeah. And white mages nowadays are usually called clerics in other games.
You know that makes
Uh,
sense. That makes sense.
yeah, and like they do the same things. It's just that they have they just have different names. Although there are some clerics that do like light magic as well as like healing magic, but like that's for certain games. But for
Right.
this, it's like they use healing magic. They have some offensive capabilities, but they're not as potent as a black mage. But much
Mhm.
like a black mage, their strength and defense is pitiful.
Yeah. I would honestly rank them in the same spot as the Dark Mage, Black Mage,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think
mainly
so.
because of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The Again, they're yin and yang. They are the opposites to each other, and they complement each other. In fact, in the earlier games, people would usually pick a white mage and a black mage together, you know.
Right. A cloak and a
Um,
dagger.
yeah. Speaking of cloaks and daggers, though, we come to another early mage archetype that honestly doesn't get represented as much as you would think, but it's the red mage.
Ha ha! The jack of all trades, the master of none.
Yeah, again, reason for that. They are the jack of all trades mages. Now, you think that they'd be better. I mean, just look at that red fedora and cape combo. I mean,
It looks like a musketeer.
yeah, he does. That fedora is pretty cool. But the thing about them is, so unlike their dedicated counterparts, red mages can learn both black and white magic. So they can both attack and heal.
Mhm.
They can also equip staves as well as swords, uh, which none of the most of the other mages can equip that.
Mhm.
However, red mages, despite learning both types of magic, can't master it to the same level as a black mage or a white mage. Like you
Right.
look at the original first Final Fantasy game, black and white mages can learn up to like level 5 black and white magic for certain
Mhm.
stuff, like fire 5 and heal 5 or whatever. Red mages don't only go up to level 3
Right.
magic. So uh, honestly, they're kind of tricky because, you know, in some ways, they're better than their dedicated counterparts in the fact that like they can cast both. However, they're not as proficient as both. But
Mhm.
that also the
But
the reason for that I think is just for the fact that it doesn't make them overpowered that
right.
way.
So
Um,
in a sense of real world, the red mage is a more versatile mage.
mhm.
Like, you can't really throw a white mage into the battlefield to fight. Like, you can throw them
Mhm.
in to heal, but you can't really throw them out in to fight. And the extra jobs that I mentioned that the black mage can do, you know, the white mage can't do those. While at the same time,
Mhm.
you can't really have the black mage go and fight, or not fight, go into a hospital and heal people like the white mage can.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the red mage, you can throw them in a large chunk of positions that require certain needs.
Hmm.
Like again, bonfire. We need someone to bonfire. Red mage. There you go. Ah, but you burned me. Oh, there you go. All healed.
Hmm.
So, and yes, they're not as powerful, but that's
Well,
basically
it's
what.
not just about being powerful. It could
Right.
also think about it this way. It could also limit them to only having certain abilities.
It could limit them, but at the same time, they're still a jack of all trades. They're still someone who could be used multiple different places. Because
Hmm.
of that, I kind of want to make the argument for S tier.
You know what? I'd be okay with that.
All
I
right.
mean, again, it like if this were like actual ranking of Final Fantasy battle mechanics, that'd be a different story. Oh,
Right, but this is real world
also,
implications.
I just read something. How does this? Can
Oh,
you hear me now?
yeah, that is a lot louder.
Yeah, yeah, that was not the USB mic before. Um that was my computer mic.
All right.
I am still getting used to this thing. Okay. Um now now we go to the thief. Um
Stab, grab, and run. That's
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's basically its thing. One thing about it though, in the first Final Fantasy game, this is why I did not put the entirety of the in-game applications into consideration. In the very first Final Fantasy game, this was fixed in like later reversions of the first game, but they could not steal. They had the steal command, but it never worked because how much the game was bugged.
Ah,
Um,
boo.
but in most games, uh, they steal from enemies. They particularly have very high speed and dash abilities. So they're pretty agile. They have the ability to flee from battles. I mean, other party members have the ability to flee from battles, but they don't have the same high percentage chance that a thief does. And a thief usually equips daggers and knives,
Hmm.
very quick thieving weapons.
Yes.
Um, and typically, they're modeled after Robin Hood, which, well, actually, no, that's a different job class that I'm
Hmm.
thinking about. Um,
All right. All right. So we're thinking of real world uses for a thief.
mhm.
Um, uh,
Keep in mind too, in Final Fantasy VI, there is a thief character named Locke, and he prefers to be called a treasure hunter.
well, if that's the case, archaeologist. Come on, the thief's basically Indiana Jones and Laura Croft.
Hmm.
No, but you see the tough part about this is you can see the practical uses for a thief, but they're not moral uses.
Hmm.
Oh, I really want that thing, but I don't have money. Well, I've got it now. Here you go.
Hmm.
Oh, look
Now,
at all this money. What money?
but keep in mind too, you're also talking about characters that are fighting against enemies.
That's
You know,
true.
you could be stealing some pretty high efficiency items right there.
You could. You could. But again, we're thinking of real world implications. And as much as I would like to say that the thief would be higher up on the list, ethically, I can't. That'd be like saying I'm promoting crime, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I guess it does.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, then where does the thief go?
I would, I'd say either B or C. because I like the archaeology idea. I'm not stealing. I'm just breaking into an ancient like building, cracking the safe that we need to crack into to get this, you know, ancient artifact.
Hmm. Okay. Um, hmm. This is honestly kind of tricky because I see the knight being more useful than the thief because if we're talking about nobility and morality, you know, that's pretty much the knight.
That's true.
So, I don't know. I guess I'm thinking C for this one. So all of these are like different character sprites. So I'm guessing this one is Zidane, which Zidane is a thief in Final Fantasy. So I'm sorry, Zidane, you're going in C. And
Mm,
plus, there's other characters that kind of do similar things that I at least think are a little bit better. Um,
right.
and then we get to the last of the six jobs that was in uh that were exclusive to the first game, the monk. So
Hmm.
now monks cannot equip weapons or armor. And in most games, they usually fight with their bare fists and feet and nothing else. Uh, but here's the thing. Because they only fight with their bare fists and feet, you don't gotta spend money on them.
That is
No need.
true.
No need for spells, no need for weapons, no need for armor. They
No
just
need
fight
for
with their bare
shoes.
fists. Yeah. Well, but because of that, they have a very high health point stat and very high endurance. Uh
Hmm.
they can also have counterattacks, and in some games, they have chakras to cure status ailments or HP recovery.
Nice. All right, so immediately my thought for these people are athletes.
Hmm.
Like specifically, track, you know, maybe some sort of MMA fighting.
Martial arts, a
Yeah,
lot of these monk archetypes in the Final Fantasy games are typically the martial arts
well,
type of characters.
right. That is my first thought when it comes to them. I There are certain sports that I cannot see them taking part in, such as baseball or hockey, because you can't equip them with a weapon.
Well, they probably wouldn't be as proficient with them anyways.
They
Uh,
wouldn't.
but the other thing too is that they probably work better in a street fight scenario, considering the fact that they could be Batman.
That is true. But at the same time, again, like that's my first thought. Thinking it over, because I I don't know what other like they could always be like martial arts teachers because
Mhm.
you know I they could be security and for bars. I'm trying to think of other practical uses that don't involve them fighting.
Again, they have chakras
Hmm.
for curing ailments, and
That is,
status ailments are kind of a real thing, like poison or paralysis or
yeah,
whatever.
that is true. There could be some healthcare benefits. I'd say the only major downside I can think of, because they're using their bare hands and bare feet,
Mhm.
it means they're not allowed into a lot of establishments. Because a lot of establishments have the no shirt, no shoes job or stuff. So
So,
if they don't
so
have shoes, you can't really go into an establishment.
I mean, if you look at okay, I guess some of these characters are shirtless. I mean, just take a look at Bart's and
Yeah.
shoot, I'm forgetting his name. But yeah, except for the women characters, because I mean that their arms are exposed, but uh, not that conversation. So I can see it either as an A or B.
I'd probably say more B.
Okay. We're gonna use Saban because Saban is one of my favorite monks. Fun fact about Saban, his blitz techniques, which are kind of like, his fighting techniques. Well, two things. One, you input them with button combinations like Street Fighter 2, which is cool. And two, he learns a move called the suplex, and he could suplex a freaking train. And that's
Nice.
and that's like one of the most iconic scenes. But we're not including that when it comes to the discussion of monks, we're talking baseline. But that was the very first six jobs of the games. So we're moving on to the archer.
All
These
right.
are your more Robin Hood archetypes.
Yep.
Um, so they of course use bows and arrows. In
Hmm.
fact, in most of these games, they are the only party members to equip bows and arrows, which makes sense.
Yep.
Uh, they generally have pretty high accuracy. In some games, they call upon animals for assistance, which includes small amounts of damage or HP recovery. Um, the
Hmm.
one downside to the archer, though, is the fact that they have the ability to hit enemies on target or multiple enemies at random. Uh, but each time it's used, it's less effective.
Okay. All right.
But that could be hard to apply for like a real world perspective because I mean like we're not using bows and arrows today, we're using guns, which I guess could be applicable for this discussion since, we're not necessarily talking about gunners, but
Okay. So here's my thing
mhm,
because I have an amazing argument for archers solely because I used to argue that Hawkeye is a great avenger for the teams, even though everyone just considers him the bow and arrow guy. Because here's the thing, when you're shooting with a bow and arrow, you need to know accuracy. You have to have the strength to pull the arrow back.
mhm,
You have you get or you have to understand wind reads, you have to understand the trajectory, angles, all these fancy schmancy science terms.
mhm,
So that's part A. Part B, yes, nowadays we use guns, but you can still use a bow and arrow for activities such as hunting.
mhm,
So these could be the hunters who will go, you know, take out a bunny or a deer as well. And I know we're talking about real world circumstances, and this isn't necessarily a real world circumstance, but in the sense of a zombie apocalypse, if you run out of bullets, arrows can be reused.
that is true.
Mhm.
That is true.
And
Although arrows do, you know what? This could be the reason why the arrows become less effective over time. If you're using the same arrows,
hmm
they could get dull,
yeah, exactly. I mean, you'd have to go and sharpen them again.
and
But
that takes time.
yeah, my last point I want to bring up with the archers, because
Mhm.
you mentioned that they are able to communicate with animals, right? Sort of like Disney princess style.
Yes, but they there's other job classes that kind of do that same thing a
Hmm.
little bit, and they're a little bit more dedicated that way. Um, I don't think it's as potent as some of those other jobs. But I
Well,
guess
regardless, if you're able to communicate with animals, that can that can make a real, como se dice? I don't know what to say. Law enforcement, all right? It can make a real difference in law enforcement. Let's say someone gets murdered, but they own a cat. That cat can help find the murderer. or someone gets robbed out in broad daylight. Guess what? All around us, there are animals. Like, I'm currently sitting on my front porch recording this, looking out the window. I see a squirrel up there. I see two birds getting really friendly with each other right there. Uh, there was a raccoon over in that tree earlier. Like, you could be a serious, like, spy for the government, or you could be a serious law enforcement agent because you're taking into account what the animals see. So I would like to say that an archer would be higher on the list. I'd like to make the argument of S, but I'm not sure if they would be in a full S tier. I feel like they would have to settle all the way at A tier.
Um, I'll make the argument for A
Okay.
just for the fact that like while you can reuse arrows, you do have to like sharpen them,
All right.
and that takes that takes time. That takes
Mm-hmm.
time to do. Now my
Well, you don't
question,
have to reuse an arrow. You can get multiple arrows.
yeah, that's true, but you know that could be limited in terms of your there's only so many arrows that you could carry, you know. You gotta aim wisely.
Well, yeah, but that's part of what would make an archer great, because a good archer, they can draw back with all these different things I mentioned earlier already factored into play. You know, wind speed, wind direction, angle, trajectory. Is there something that's going to be in my way?
Yeah.
How far? How far do I have to pull back? All those things.
Yeah. All right, but I'll put in an A. I'm not finding a character that I could distinctly describe as a dedicated archer, so we're gonna use Rosa because she's technically a white mage, but she does have like bow and arrow capabilities.
Okay.
That's the thing about these story-based characters in some of the other games, you know, they kind of combine jobs together by default,
Hmm.
which is just how it is. Okay, bards.
Spoony
The
musicians.
the spoonie is for a reason. So in the original Final Fantasy 4 localization, which was called Final Fantasy 2 back then in North America, there's a line where uh there's a bard named Edward and he's getting attacked by Tella, who's like this mage and is kind of a racist grandpa. That's at least how most people describe him.
Huh.
Uh, but he says a line in the localization called "You Spoony Bard," which is not really what they say in Japanese, but in every localization of the game, like the DS remake or the Pixel remaster, while they do make better script changes, they kept the spoony line, which is like it is a good way to describe Edward.
Yeah.
Uh, but yes, bards are musicians. Specifically, they sing and play the harp to produce effects on different stats in battle. So can affect any stats, physical, magic, speed, strength, whatever. Uh, Again, they can equip hearts. The thing about bards, though, is that they have the ability to hide and appear during a battle. So they have a command called hide. And when they're hiding, they're not in battle, but you can attack with them either or do their abilities with them. The only
Hmm.
command that's present is appear. And once they appear, they're in the battle again. And the main reason being is because they're low strength. They're
Right.
they're very pitiful. Um
Hmm. All right.
so,
Oh, was there more?
uh no, that was it.
Cool. So a bard, and I'm gonna be super biased about this.
Hmm.
Bard deserves to be an S tier.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. And, since we're talking real world stuff and considering the fact that I am a musician, I will be biased to say I agree with you.
Cool. I still want to give my reasonings because I
Hmm.
feel like I have some pretty good reasonings.
Hmm.
First off, I gotta go with one of my favorite quotes, and I wish I remember who said it.
Hmm.
I think it was Descartes, but someone said without music, life would be a mistake. All around us, we have music, right? In fact,
Hmm.
yesterday, Jake and I were on the phone and we were talking about different types of music. You know, at least with me and my family, music is a big part of everything we do. My family, we are all big concert goers. For me and my sister, whenever we're doing any sort of chores or any sort of jobs, we like to have music playing to sort of inspire us to go do what we're doing. I've got a full, like, 16-hour long playlist just for disc golfing. It's, and then as for practical uses, they're musicians, but they're also hype men and women. Just imagine that in any situation. Uh, I'd love to finish this race, but it's just too far. And then all of a sudden, Billy the Bard pops out of the bushes, grabs his harp, and starts singing five or I'm gonna be 500 miles. And I will walk 500 miles, and I will walk 500 more.
Imagine a bard just playing that in his on his harp. That's pretty fantastic. But no, I
Yes.
agree with you. And full disclosure, we're probably gonna be having that discussion about music in a future episode.
Hmm.
Um, but um, coming from someone who is a musician, music has been a big part of my life, even before I decided to dedicate my life to music. Like even now. My horn is right next to me. After this, I'm probably gonna practice.
Jake, put your horn away. You're always
Most
so
of the,
horny.
but most of the time, it's outside of the case. But
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm sure we have kids watching this.
well, I don't know if we'll have Final Fantasy fans watching this, but just for your reminder, this is a real world pod tier list ranking, not a which job is the actual best to use in each game, period.
Yes.
But we're gonna be using Edward the Bard from Final Fantasy IV since he gets the credit of being used Spoony Bard. Well, he is a Spoony Bard, but um yeah. That's crazy. The Bard ranks higher than the Black Mage or the White Mage. That's nuts.
Yes. Well,
Um
again, it's all about the music.
mhm. Yeah. Also, I don't like how the Final Fantasy V characters don't carry like a harp with them. These are the bards. Um, I mean
Really?
they got yeah, they got the get up. I don't know. Kajiko Shibuya was like the sprite and chibi artist. And to
Mm,
be fair, she was drawing like 26, 27 jobs,
hmm.
which was a lot. You know what is a lot? Dark Knight.
Nice.
The Dark Knight is not a very present job in most of these games. In fact, they're not present in Final Fantasy V. Uh, there is kind of a reason for that, but we'll get to that. They first appeared in Final Fantasy III. Cecil is a Dark Knight in Final Fantasy IV. They did appear back in the MMORPGs and Final Fantasy Tactics. Um, so yes, Dark Knights. They got cool armor.
Yep.
Uh, Typically speaking, they have pretty high in physical attacks. They equip swords. In some games, they equip scythes. I'm not sure how that's particularly useful as a sword, but okay. Um, but they also have the ability to cast black magic, which in some
Okay.
ways makes them better than a black mage, just by the
Right.
fact that they got better defensive and attacking capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a cost to wearing this cool armor. They have a dark wave or darkness ability. It's not present in all the games, but it's in most of it. Uh, Whenever this ability is used, it lowers the HP each time.
Mm.
You sacrifice strength for attack.
Yep.
Also, a little design detail in Final Fantasy 3 is that whenever the Dark Knight is KO'd in battle, there's nothing left but their armor.
Oh.
That is the cost of being a Dark Knight. So, with all that being said, Xavier, what do you think?
I think Batman should be placed with or on the same ranking as the normal knight.
That's fair. That's
I'm just,
fair.
well, my main thing is like, yes, you have the same practical uses as a normal knight with the additional use of black magic, but you're still losing on it
Mhm.
because you're losing HP. So it's more, for lack of better term, it's more like a cancer
Yeah.
than an actual beneficer.
Yeah, I agree with that. So the Dark Knight is in B tier. I put Cecil the Dark Knight on there. He actually does not stay as a Dark Knight for long in the game. He becomes a different class member later, which we will talk about and discuss.
I will say Cecil does have a fairly close look to Batman. Considering we're talking about Dark Knights.
Yeah. Well, actually, a very cool design detail for both Cecil and Kane, who's
Mhm.
actually the next job that we will be talking about. Um, when you look at their character profiles, you see that their armor is obscuring their eyes
Oh,
or partially showing their face, because as we all know, the eyes are the windows to the soul.
okay.
So it's a really cool design detail that I really like. Um, but speaking
Right.
of Kane, Kane is a dragoon.
Dragoon.
Yeah, so dragoons are literally dragon knights. They first appeared in Final Fantasy 3, and their main gimmick is they attack their enemies by jumping. Now,
They're Marios.
pretty much. Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, they jump pretty high to the point where like they're not in battle for a short time because that jump takes a while to land on the ground. But
Okay.
the attack is pretty powerful because of that.
Mhm.
They have the ability to equip lances and spears, which makes sense. You know, they jump pretty high in the air, so they pretty much want to use long range weapons. Um,
Right.
and plus their armor is just so cool. It's
Their
literally
armor is
dragon
really cool.
armor.
Yeah, it is really cool. I'm trying to think. Practical uses for a high jump. I mean, I guess if you're doing any sort of repairs that require you to get to a high place and you forget a ladder, a
Hmm.
dragoon could help. But at the same time, if they go too high up, they might crash through.
Hmm. They have pretty
Otherwise,
hot.
hmm?
They have pretty good acrobatics if they were to do the Olympics.
No, yeah, that's true. Olympics. And of course, they're fighters, so
Hmm.
military and all that. I hate to say this,
Hmm.
they might also need to be in a B tier.
I could see that honestly. And I'm gonna put Kane, Cecil and Kane, each
Uh,
other. but I agree with that. I think dragoons are like one of those things where like they're good for certain things, but they're not jack of all trades with everything, you know.
Right.
Um, they only hold specific weapons. They only have really one ability that's pretty useful. Um, and it takes them a while for that ability to really hit its impact. It's still
Hmm.
a very useful ability for the Dragoon, but still though.
Right.
Alrighty.
The gambler dealing
Okay.
through life's problems.
So the thing about the gambler is I have like two images of like the same character right there. I couldn't find too many other gamblers that have a distinct look. Um,
Hmm.
so gamblers are actually not a very common job archetype. The first gambler wasn't introduced until Final Fantasy VI with the character Setzer, which is the character you see on screen on there. Um, fun fact, he was designed by Tetsuya Nomura, who also designed the Ninja Shadow. And the Gambler was originally going to be a job archetype for Final Fantasy V, but they were like, oh, it has too much personality. But then that was perfect for six, because six is all about good characters. And Setzer is one of my favorite characters. But
Hmm.
and there are other gambler archetypes in other games, like Case Sith from Final Fantasy VII is also a gambler. Um, he's kind of an odd bugger of a character. Um, but typically speaking, uh, and there are other characters that have gambling specific abilities as like side abilities that they have along with their other jobs. Um, but typically, gamblers is all about game of chance,
Hmm.
playing through cards, slots, and dice. Effects are random. It could deal low damage, could be high damage, could heal all of your party, or not do anything, or instant death.
Hmm. Cool. Oh man, this sucks. This sounds like a really cool character, but considering the effects are all random
Yeah,
and Gam
but that also kind of depends on how proficient you are on like slot machines, you know?
that's true, but also gambling is a big problem.
That is true.
I don't know. I kind of want to say either D or F for him.
Oh, you know
I
what?
want to lean more towards D because the effects could be beneficial,
I
but
I'll
because they are more random, especially if you're not as proficient,
mhm.
it I don't know.
I'll put it at D. I think there can be some potential uses for it. Um,
Hmm.
s- and of course I have Setzer on there, partaking the rare spot of being a gambler. Um,
Hmm.
I will admit, he's a great character. His abilities are kind of hard to use a little bit
Right.
if you're not as proficient with it.
Hmm.
All right. Geomancers.
Okay.
So, geomancers were not a thing until well, actually, I think it was either Final Fantasy 3 or 5. But either way, uh geomancers can cast spells, but it's based on the terrain. So, you got earth magic. You got
Mm.
water magic. Ice magic. Lava, fire magic.
Ooh.
They can equip
Okay.
they can equip bells. I'm not sure what bells can really do. I guess you could smack enemies with bells. Um Now this is an ability I found very interesting that I didn't know about. It can allow your entire party to walk on damage causing floors. So you can walk on lava.
Nice. Oh, this is actually the real world implications of this one's actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
Like imagine
I like
was
their
that?
get up for Final Fantasy V. It's like they're going to bed.
It does kind of look like that. Yeah,
Hmm.
but so real world implications walk like causing their party to walk on damaged or damage causing floors like lava or maybe like rushing tidal waves. That provides a little that would provide an additional sense of protection. It would be great for national park tours, especially if it's like especially if you're going somewhere like Alaska where you could end up having to walk on an icy terrain
Or Yellowstone.
or
Walk on
Yellowstone.
walk on geysers.
Yes. But not only that, if their magic is based on the terrain, the amount of useful situations that could be used. Like, let's say, well, how big would the terrain have to be?
Honestly, I don't know, considering the fact that, these are turn-based RPGs that we're talking about,
Hmm.
um, for the most part. Um, so it kind of depends on like the terrain of battle. It's not like you're given freeway movement like you would in an MMORPG.
Right. Because if, if terrain is more just like, let's say you're standing on it,
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a firefighter with the whole damage causing ground,
Mm-hmm.
that would be really helpful. One of those geomancers could walk into a burning building,
Mm-hmm.
grab everyone who's stuck inside, and just walk them out without having to worry.
And I'm sure they could find some way where it's just like, oh, hey, you don't have to touch me. You just have to stand by me. And there you go. You can.
Right. But not only that, but if you were able to bring a pool with you and they were able to like stand in that pool and use it, quick way to extinguish a fire.
Mhm.
And just there are so many implications for this. I want to say that the Geomancer is an S tier.
I was thinking you were going to say that. That's interesting. Um, but I'm okay with that. Real world applications.
Hmm.
I'm okay with Geomancer being an S tier. All right, ninjas.
throwing, throwing random crap at enemies.
That's honestly kind of its thing. So
Uh,
ninjas in most of the games uh can throw any weapons or items that are unequipped.
okay.
And that also means you can throw like the most powerful items in the game. But the only caveat being is that, once you throw them, you'll lose them forever.
Mm,
So it's not like you could just go well, you can go willy-nilly on them, but like, you know, don't want to necessarily do that. They can equip weapons with both hands, makes sense. Uh, but much like the thief, they have very high speed and agility and can also steal items.
okay. I get that there's no actual ninjas. Or if there are actual ninjas, they're just really stealthy.
I mean, we got Ninjago, we got those ninjas.
Right. But imagine the things that you almost exclusively need to throw. Like, I feel like ninjas would be great bags players.
Mhm.
They'd be great at disc golf. Honestly, I could see ninjas as baseball players.
Mm.
Lots of sports. Outside of sports, trying to think what other situations where you may need to throw things.
At the very least, I see them as a B. Because I
Yeah,
see them as better. I see them better than the thief.
so do I. I would say Yeah, I'd agree with B.
Yeah. And we're gonna put Shadow on there, who was also designed by Tetsuya Nomura. Um, except Shadow had like a canine companion that he exclusively used as well.
All right. It looks like we're just over halfway done.
Yeah. Now, you think throwing random crap at enemies is funny.
Hmm. Money and life's problems.
Again, this is an act. This is not just a skill the samurai does. This is the skill that every samurai in every game it appears in does.
Oh, that is awesome.
The skill is specifically called gil toss because gil is like a currency that you use. But
Mhm.
essentially, yes, you're throwing money at enemies for high damage.
Okay.
The caveat being that like, it's kind of like you're losing your money that way. It's not the same like
Hmm.
meow with payday.
Right.
But besides that, the samurai is excellent at physical combat, which makes sense. Um, do they also have pretty good defense as well because they got pretty high armor.
Hmm.
But they can also equip long swords or katanas, you know, very
Right.
samurai-esque. Uh, they can possibly have the abilities. Now this doesn't happen every time, but they can instantly kill enemies or paralyze them.
Right. Okay.
So in some ways, I could see them being better than a knight.
I could. I would really hate to be a cashier when a samurai walks in. Yes, that would be 54.99. All right, give me a second. Money, money, money. They would be great at strip clubs.
um,
Just tossing money at.
well, okay, when you put it that way, I guess. But that's actually kind of apropos as we will talk about later. But um I guess I could see the samurai as an A.
I can too. I'd say A tier would be
I
great
mean,
for
I'm
that.
not sure if you should throw away money at life's problems. That's literally how it's described by the Final Fantasy community.
Well, to be fair, if you throw money at someone, chances are they're gonna take it and walk away.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. Scholars.
Hmm.
Uh, these are probably one of the least represented job archetypes in Final Fantasy and in most other like RPG classes, like Octopath Traveler, which is why I have an Octopath art at the bottom there. That's Cyrus. He's a
Hmm.
scholar. But here's the difference with Cyrus though, is that Cyrus is a scholar, but he can also have very high proficiency with like black magic.
Oh, cool.
In most Final Fantasy games, though, they don't really attack. They just scan enemies for weaknesses and then
Hmm.
peep to show enemies health points, which is useful.
Yeah.
There is a job archetype kind of that comes later that does it better, kind of similar to like the thief versus the ninja.
All right.
But since we are talking about real world applications, having a scholar is not a bad idea.
No, I mean, if you're scanning enemies for weaknesses, like any sort of job, like trade a job that requires trying to assess a problem and fix it, you could bring a scholar in and say, "Hey, your enemy is that furnace over there. What's
Mhm,
the problem with that furnace?" And again, it's, "Oh, this is the problem. If we don't fix this problem, this is how long it's going to take before it goes out." So
mhm,
granted, they can't, it's, I don't know how they would be able to use that, like what they would do after they provide that knowledge, but being able to provide that knowledge is already a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, and this is gonna make me sound really bad until I explain this.
Hmm.
I can see scholars as special education teachers.
That
I
makes
mean,
sense.
I can see them as teachers in general, but specifically special education. So I've already mentioned this before, but in special education, part of my job is to assess students' areas of improvement.
Hmm.
As a scholar, if you're assessing weaknesses, you're basically assessing areas that need improvements on.
Hmm.
I was trying to change it up so I didn't say the same thing, but kind of did.
Hmm.
But regardless, if you had a scholar in a special education setting, I bet you they would do wonders for the child.
Hmm.
So I kind of want to say either A or maybe a high B for this one.
I'll put it at A. I think there's some great practical uses with the scholar. We're putting Sid for Final Fantasy IV down.
Okay.
I kind of don't like the fact how not all the main characters from Final Fantasy are represented, but whatever. We'll make do with what we got.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, scholars are kind of a laughing stock when it comes to job classes. And actually, it's a good thing that I put scholar at A, and maybe it could be lower to B, but that's for
Mhm.
a different job. All right, summoners.
All right, now
So
go do my job for me.
when I was reading his job description, that's pretty much what it is. Summoners are probably one of the most common job archetypes in Final Fantasy, um, appearing as early as the third game, and even in games where they are character based, most main party members, at least one of them is the summoner.
Hmm.
Um, but they also have the proficiency to cast black magic as well for some of those characters. But yes, summoners can summon monsters or creatures to battle or heal. Now, in Final Fantasy games, it's usually stuff like, they can summon chocobos, which are like those rideable birds that are in every game. But they can also summon powerful monsters like Bahamut.
All right, cool.
But yeah, they could summon dragons, they could summon creatures from the sea. Um, but they can not only battle, they can also have the potential to summon monsters that heal as well. Now they can cast one that costs magic to use,
Hmm.
but they can also cast one at random that doesn't cost magic points to use. However, the caveat being it's random.
Right. Okay. So first thing I gotta say, the summoner kind of looks horny. I don't know what it is.
Actually, so the little like horn on their head is it's meant to symbolize their like communication with the whatever beast they're trying to summon.
All right. All right. So this is actually really, how long would they be able to hold a summon?
Well, in mo actually in the majority of the games, it's like for that one turn in battle. I mean,
Ah,
they could summon it a repeat if they want to, but if we're talking about like individual ones, then yeah, it's going to cost magic to use.
right.
No different from the other typical mages. But you know,
Mm-hmm. All right.
if
So,
it,
you first.
no, go ahead.
So the first thing that came to mind with me is a zookeeper, specifically one of those like zookeeper specialists that will bring out an animal to
Hmm.
show to people, just so that they can learn a little more about what the animal is, what it does.
Hmm.
You mentioned the option of it or of summoners, summoning flying creatures, and you included dragons. You know how profitable a dragon ride would be? I
Oh
mean,
man.
not only would that be profitable, but like I can imagine airlines. Let's
Hmm.
see here. You could either be first class on a plane, or you can be one-on-one with a summoner on a dragon.
You know what you could also do is summon a herd of raging bulls.
Yeah? Why? I mean I can think of reasons why.
Could be worst case scenario, we could be in a war
That's
and
true.
we run out of firepower. Summon
Mhm.
raging bulls.
Yeah. Well, and if these summons would have been able to stay, they could be like pet store owners. Oh, you want a cat? Here you go. You want a dog? Here you go. You
Ha
want a
ha ha ha.
snake? It's kind of creepy, but here you go.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I could also see them again, depending on permanence, I could see them working in food industries. Oh, what? We need a cow and we don't have any. Here you go. Here's some beef.
So what are you thinking for this one?
I kind of want to say either A or S for this one as well.
I'll put it as an S.
Because
Summoners are pretty powerful in most of these games, but applying them to the real world, I think they could
hmm
be pretty pretty cool to use.
right.
All right, here's our other creature based.
Ah, boo, F tier. Immediately.
Yeah, so however, I find it kind of funny that the Final Fantasy V outfits for the jobs has like sheep wool.
Well, yeah, they're wolves in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, so these are the other creature-based job archetypes. Um, so Beastmasters can capture and manipulate enemies, so they can manipulate enemies during battle to do their bidding, or they could capture a weakened enemy to use for a single attack. They also equip whips.
hmm All right. I still say F tier for them because if you abuse animals, that's wrong.
I
And
kind of I kind of agree with that.
right. I mean, I can see certain implications being able to manipulate weakened enemies, in
Hmm.
like super secret spy scenarios.
Hmm.
But you're abusing animals. That's wrong.
Yeah. What's even well, I guess the job is so bad that I don't have a character icon for like a Beastmaster.
Really?
So yeah, like I said, it's like a random assortment of like different job archetypes from like different characters, which makes it suck for me because I kind of have to like I recognize like certain characters, but like
hmm
you got certain jobs and like it's just kind of hairy. So I'm gonna pick this guy just for the fact that he kind of looks like an animal a
All
little bit
right.
with its like uh hairdo or whatever.
All right. That's fine.
Okay. Berserker.
The barbarian.
So berserkers are probably some of the strongest characters in the game physically.
hmm
Uh you cannot control them.
Right.
Got no attack prompts whatsoever. That makes them good for stuff like Coliseum stuff.
hmm
But for actual battles,
Yeah.
I mean they're just untrained animals at that point.
hmm All right. So other than just the normal military, throw them out there, they'll go wild.
Hmm.
I can honestly see just just like the scholar, I can see them in sort of a trades field as well. Oh, what's that? We need to carry this heavy ass air conditioning unit all the way up there. Yeah, yeah, that's easy. Or like when you and I work for the public works departments of our cities, when it comes to those big logs that come from trees that we've had to chop up,
Yeah.
where it would normally take two guys, maybe three to roll it in. A barbarian could just pick it up with one hand, put it in. Like,
Oh,
honest,
oh boy.
what's up?
My only argument with that is just the fact that, like, you know, you can't control them though. That's the thing.
Well, but the thing is, it says attacks uncontrollably. I mean, I
You know,
guess, I
yeah,
guess you could utilize it almost like the Hulk. How in
mhm,
the movies there's not really any control. He just goes out
yeah,
and smashes shit.
yeah. You really want the Hulk to help you move?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right.
Just don't give him a couch and screen pivot. We're good.
Well, what do you think it for the Berserker?
I'd say either B or A. Just the idea of extra strength. Like, you can use that in so many different scenarios.
I will at least put it in a B.
Okay.
I can't believe there aren't any icons for the Berserker. Not even Umaro, which is kind of strange seeing that there's Gogo on there, which I know I'm going to use him for. So we're just going to use this Viking ass guy.
uh,
Please forgive me. All right. Um
Forgive me.
all right, these are the other mages. The other color mage,
Oh,
that is.
oh.
Okay, now, first of all, I love this blue mage get up for Final Fantasy V. Makes them look like superheroes,
Oh, I
which is
wasn't even looking at
cool.
the mage getup. I was looking at the abilities.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's so
no, no,
cool.
no. Blue mages are so blue mages were actually a replacement. So they first appeared in Final Fantasy V. Uh, and scholars weren't in the game either, which makes sense because they have similar abilities to scholars where they can scan and analyze enemies the same way a scholar does, but they also learn abilities from the enemies in battle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, not all enemies' abilities are going to be useful.
Well, no.
However, the sheer fact that you can learn from like a wide array of enemies during battle makes it very potent uh and honestly makes them more useful than most other mages.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
in a lot of ways they're better than a scholar.
Yeah.
Just by the sheer fact that they could do the same jobs a scholar does but better.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm gonna say S tier for that. Like, a scholar can look at something and pinpoint the weakness, but a
Mhm.
blue mage can look at it and say, hey, this is what the problem is. Here's how I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah. I should also mention too that blue mages so I put the stare thing down because now in some games you'll learn abilities by enemies attacking you. In Final Fantasy VI, Strago can learn abilities just by watching them,
Mm-hmm.
by using like the watch command thing or whatever. And in Final Fantasy IX, you meet Kina and she learns abilities by eating creatures.
Yum. Kind of gross, but yum.
And this is a crime, considering the fact that I don't see any particular icons for the blue mage. Uh,
Ah.
so I'm picking this guy just because he looks like what the blue mages from Final Fantasy V look like. But
Okay.
um, yeah, I agree. S tier. I think honestly, I think they're one of the best mages to use.
Mm-hmm.
Chemists.
How do you take your drink?
Yeah.
Heavy.
So
Some
another
arsenic.
another alternate title for the chemist that's used nowadays is apothecaries.
Okay.
I think I'm pronouncing that word right. But essentially their jobs is to combine various different items to
Hmm.
create various effects. So it could increase the potency of healing or increase the potency for attacking. In fact, in Final Fantasy V, they have a specific icon called the drink command.
Nice. I'd say for the chemist, I would I kind of want to say A tier for them. Because in the real world, doing stuff like that can be practical. That's how we get most of our modern medicine, you know. They can also work in bars, you know. Hey, I want a drink that makes me feel good. I want a drink that's gonna get me to talk to that girl. I want a drink that's gonna make me talk to that guy. You know, stuff like that.
Or you could drink something that's poisonous.
Or you could drink something that's poisonous. I mean, that's alcohol in general, but
Whoa, that's a
it's a slow acting and usually burns out of your system before you get too far, but you know.
yeah, but
The
that's a take right there though.
Well, there is such thing as alcohol poisoning.
And I recognize that. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying the people that do drink or have drank in the past might have some subtle disagreements with that take.
Relax. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
The other job I can think of that would be very beneficial would be any sort of cook or chef job.
that is true. Didn't think about that.
Yeah. So-
Dancers.
Yeah.
You were talking about strippers earlier, and
Somebody come get her. Dun dun dun. Bah. All
okay,
right.
so dancers. It's kind of similar to bards in a way. They dance for various effects. So it could be attacking effects, could be healing the party, could be immunities, what have you. Their unique thing includes equipping ribbons,
Hmm.
which makes sense. But uh, you were mentioning something earlier about this, but like they could flirt with enemies. So enemies can be infatuated.
Nice. All
I
right.
love, I love in particular Bard's dancer get up with the open t-shirt. Makes him like a Spanish dancer.
Yep. All right. So this is hard because I I want to say S tier, but I don't think they have as many real world implications as a bard would.
Yeah, I think S tier is kind of stretching it a little bit. I'm willing to give it either an A or B for it.
I'd say A because you know music and dance go hand in hand. You know they could utilize dance in a bunch of different athletic ways. You can use it in different cultural ways.
Mhm.
Flirting with the enemy, you get to learn some lessons. You know,
Okay.
you could be one of those like dance instructors to help with weight loss. Yeah.
So what are you thinking?
I want
A
to
or
say
B?
A.
Okay, I'll put it at A. This is Bar's tango attire. I thought I saw a
Mm-mm.
couple of different dancers earlier. It's
Yeah.
hard looking at these icons, honestly.
Oh, that reminds me, Jake,
Hmm?
because of these dancers, you and I have to watch Coyote Ugly. Or at the very least, you have to watch Coyote Ugly.
Hmm.
You
Well,
you will know why after
hmm. Well, let's talk Magic Knights.
Magic Nights. Okay.
This was kind of underwhelming segue, but so Magic Knights, to me are kind of a better version. Now, they have a couple different names. Sometimes they're called Mystic Knights, sometimes they're called Sorcerers, which
Okay.
doesn't make any sense considering the fact that they have like literal swords most of the time. But Magic Knights I feel like are better than Dark Knights just by the fact that they also use elemental magic, but it doesn't cost them their HP. Um, Now, unlike the other knights, they have the ability to cast magic and use weapons, but their main deal is that they can use their elemental magic to enhance their weapons. So
Oh,
you
cool.
put fire on your sword, you get a fire sword.
Ha!
You put ice on your sword, you get a nice sword or a lightning sword or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
their magic defense is usually pretty high, and but there is a caveat: enemies that are immune to a particular element are not as effective for that weapon.
All right. I mean, I feel like Magic Knight could probably be thrown onto B tier.
Hmm.
Like trying to, I want to give it an A tier, but I can't think of too many practical uses other than Soldier, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Dude, I'm not finding anybody that is suitable for the role of a magic knight. This is a bummer, but uh, we'll go with this guy. He's gonna be our representative magic knight.
Hmm.
I don't know if he is, but he is for this tier list.
Right.
All right, we're down to three jobs.
All right. Last three.
Mimes.
I do what you do.
Yeah, so these aren't your typical black and white mimes, although that could be the case. But mimes specifically copy abilities from the last attacking party member that you have.
Oh, okay.
Now, I put the ineffective if you do nothing because there is a battle that you fight in Final Fantasy V where you fight actually a character that is on the icon list that is a playable character in Final Fantasy VI, Go, who's
Hmm.
now mimes are also called mimics.
Hmm.
Uh which, they're basically the same thing. But the strategy in defeating a mimic is if you do nothing, they do nothing.
Right. All right. So, practical use wise, because if all they're doing is mimicking and they're mimicking the last move you do,
Hmm.
they're not really that effective. Because there aren't,
Yeah.
at least I can't think of too many jobs where you're going to need two people doing the same thing at staggered times.
Dancing.
Well, dancing. But other than that, like even if you're fighting, that's not an effective thing.
So what are you thinking?
I would say I'd say either C or D, leaning more towards D, because there's still some uses, but not good uses.
Yeah, I'll put it at D.
Mm-hmm.
It's a D mimic.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is our last I guess you call it magic knight archetype. This is the
Uh,
paladin. This is much like the Dark Knight, it doesn't appear too often. Um
well, yeah, the Dark
Pal
Knight hides in the shadows.
yeah. Okay. So paladins are similar to Dark Knights in the fact that they have pretty good physical strength and they use magic. Unlike the Dark Knight, however, they use white magic,
Mm-hmm.
but uh but it doesn't cost them their HP like the Dark Knight. Uh,
Okay.
they cover to protect weakened party members just like a regular knight would. They can use swords and white magic separately, but they can also use them together to make them more potent. So you can have a light sword.
Mm-hmm. So honestly, I would say that Paladin could be A tier.
I
I
think so
feel
too.
Well, I feel like the only reason we didn't put the Dark Knight in A tier was because it took damage every time it
Hmm.
used its magic. But if you're able to use magic and not take damage, you're immediately a step up.
Hmm. Yeah. And I put Cecil, the other Cecil, who becomes a paladin later in the game after being given up his class of being a Dark Knight.
All right.
Now, I'm not sure if we saved the best for last, but it's definitely the most interesting job archetype. In fact, it's so interesting, it's only ever appeared in two games, Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy Tactics.
Okay.
It's the Time Mage.
Oh.
I put the parentheses and space because um so let me explain. So much like other mages, their physical strength and defense is kind of pitiful, you
Mm-hmm.
know, not particularly useful. However, they use magic to speed up or slow down actions.
Okay.
And in most games, they summon universal magic like meteor or gravity universal based magic. That's why I put in space mage because like those things come in space.
Mm,
I almost wanted to put like the all powerful mage down, but seeing as, they're not physically capable, much like the black and white mage.
mm-hmm.
But, you know, in terms of their proficiency, time travel?
Yeah. Well, not even that. Like, if you're able to speed up or slow down actions,
Hmm.
like, imagine if you're on such a big time crunch to get something done, you can slow down time enough so that you have plenty of time to finish what you need to do. Or on
Hmm.
the flip side, if you're on a really boring conversation, you really don't want to be a part of it, just speed the conversation up. You know,
Absolutely.
I don't know, this is weird because the idea of manipulating time would be S tier on its own.
Hmm.
You know, I'm gonna say S tier. Just because we just being able to manipulate time to benefit you is gonna cause so many extra solutions to come up.
Alrighty. Uh, Now, unfortunately, I don't have a representative for the time and space mage, but we're gonna pick this guy.
All right.
This kind of looks similar. There you
Um,
go. That is our tier list of which jobs are useful for the real world.
woohoo.
Honestly, it's looking pretty solid.
Yeah, I
Most
mean,
of
looks
these
like
jobs are competent.
hmm yeah, honestly, I feel like the majority of the job because it almost every job has a fighting stance anyway because it is a fighting game in its core. But there are so many jobs that have additional applications to them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And it's different because Pokemon is also a turn-based RPG. But with Pokemon, you're mostly doing one-on-one battles,
mhm,
not having a party of four.
right.
In most turn-based RPGs, you have at least up to like three or four different characters. So,
Hmm.
which actually brings me to one final question that I wanted to bring up for this discussion. So
Yes.
only in Final Fantasy V, you have a job that you actually have from the start, the freelancer, um, which means they can equip any jobs that you've learned after mastering a certain job.
Okay.
So, Xavier,
Yeah.
considering the fact that as of now we're both kind of freelancers, you
Hmm.
know, if you had to pick between, say, just two jobs to have, what would
Hmm.
those be?
Honestly, I would probably go. I'd probably go Blue Knight and Geomancer.
I mean, the Blue Mage?
Yep, that's what I mean. Blue Mage.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Mage and Geomancer.
Yeah. I'm also gonna pick Blue Mage, but I'm gonna pick Bard.
Okay.
Wait,
Bard was
wait.
going to be my third choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I may not be spoony, but I know my music.
All right. All right. Is there anything else we want to add, Jake?
Um, well, it brings up the fact that like we haven't really done a discussion yet on our job, our work story experiences. I mean, we've talked about work stories before, but like we've
We
not
have.
done an episode talking about, we haven't really talked about public works in a podcast yet.
We haven't. Not yet.
I think we should do that. Um, but
All right.
you
In
know,
time.
yeah, but just to say, even in the real world, we can't cast magic or abuse animals. Well,
Hmm.
actually, that is a thing in the real world.
That is
Forget
the
what
thing.
I said there. Use the abilities that you have wisely, and it doesn't hurt to be a jack of all trades.
No, it never hurts to be a jack of all trades.
But that doesn't mean you can't master any of them.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. All right. Well, with that being said, I feel like this is the end of our episode.
Mhm.
Join us back here next week where we will shift from Jake's topic to my topic. And I've got a pretty interesting topic. I'm not going to say too much, but considering we're going to be recording this around uh America's 4th of July, I felt like I wanted to do something a little more patriotic. Or
Ooh.
well, so somewhat patriotic. But with that being said, I'm Xavier Dean,
And I'm Jacob Green.
wishing you a wonderful night. Stay safe, stay cool out there. Hopefully the weather hasn't been treating you horribly, and hopefully the weather gets better for those of you who have been struggling. We will see you next week for another episode.